Vincent, and I'm joined on stage by Roger Bennet and Iain Duffus, two legends of Scottish bike sports, not just Scotland but around the world as well, as we can see from all the pictures that are going to be on screen behind us. Now come forward, come and grab a seat. The seats aren't reserved for anybody. I would love you guys to come and sit down and listen to some of the tales that these two guys are going to tell us. But first of all, we'll start. Roger, thank you very much for coming. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks Duncan. Yeah, it's great to be back. I think it's 21 years since I was at the bike show, so yeah, it's good to see everybody here.
21 years, you haven't aged a bit, and for yourself, obviously you spent a lot of time working in shows after you retired from racing. You were very much involved with RI, but welcome back to the show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great as well, thanks. It's probably about 5 years since I was last year, so I sort of retired a bit from shows.
Let's talk about racing then. No point talking about shows, we're all here for the show. It started a long time ago. I don't want to dwell on that, but some of the pictures we were getting were black and white from some people. But for yourself, Roger, 1982 was your first attempt at racing, or not attempt, first endeavour into being into bike sport. And it started, as quite a lot of you guys did back in the day, on the smaller capacity bikes, and initially RD250 and RD350s, as you guys locked horns with a few times.
Yeah, I bought an RD350B, which was an air-cooled 1975 thing for 150 quid, thinking, I'll have a go at racing, but I quite like the bike, so I'll be fine whatever happens, and just loved it. It was, I never looked back really, but I also realised that bike was rubbish, so I got a 350 LC pretty quick.
350 LC, 250 LC, you went the same way. A lot of you guys did, Iain, didn't you?
Yeah, same sort of thing. I was screaming about the roads like a lunatic and decided to have a go at racing. So, resulting in a road bike crash, got an insurance claim and bought myself a 350 LC as well.
You spent insurance money on a race bike?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's brilliant. That's maybe not the best thing to do, kids, if you're listening out there. Well, from that, obviously you guys, you went through the kind of smaller capacity bikes, and you've locked horns through your whole career. You've kind of had a graph that we go up together. Roger was telling me you've even shared a hospital award in Daytona, but we can pick up on that later on. But when you started getting into the slightly bigger bikes, that's when Brian Morrison was around. Fritz was here yesterday, and he was quite happy to say that he was the man, but he did mention both of you guys were big rivals for him.
Well, yeah, he was absolutely the man, and speaking to Iain just before, you need good competition to make it worth winning, and Brian was the target, and I can't honestly remember beating him on the GSXRs ever. It wasn't until a bit later that I kind of managed to run at his pace, but yeah, he was good, and obviously he went on to win the World Championship in endurance.
Same for you?
Well, when I first started going to Knockhill to watch, it was Gordon Rieger who used to win. And then it was Howard Selby and Eric McFarlane who were at the front on the Katanas. So then Brian took over from them. And Brian and I are pals. We're from the same part of the world, and we've been racing. Even now we race each other. So he was doing really well, and that really, really annoyed me. So I had my heart set on beating him. So once I got into the Suzuki's, the 1100s, I managed to beat him a couple of times, and so I took more to the roads than he did. I really enjoyed the TT and the Northwestern things, so I managed to beat him most of the time at them to start with. But yeah, he would have been the guy that I looked up to, and really stuck in my throat if he beat me in a race.
There was an early time in your career, though, Roger, that it was all done, and that was quite early. That's I'm retiring. I've had enough of this. It's not working. But there was another bike that you got a shot at, the big 1100 Suzuki, and then that kind of changed everything for you.
Yeah, as you say, I'd raced smaller bikes, and I've always been tall, so it was you're at a disadvantage on 250s and 350s. But anyway, 85 was a nightmare. I crashed at Thruxton and got injured, missed quite a bit of the season, and just was fed up of it really. So I sold everything late 85, and a guy called John Schreiner from Perth, who did a lot of road racing, he had a really good Yoshimura engined Harris framed 1000 Suzuki, and he was trying to sell it. So I can't remember if I approached him or vice versa, but anyway, a deal was done to ride it at the Jock Taylor meeting. And you were in that race here, because I can remember chasing you and failing to beat you. But it was just like a light bulb moment for me, you know, a bigger bike, more power. It's like, well, hey, I'm having a bit of this.
Now this was round about the time for you, if I'm not mistaken. Now, myself and Roger are wannabe rock stars, okay? I play guitar, and he was my drummer. Hard to believe, but he's a bloody good drummer. He's a talented bike racer. He's really annoying. You were sponsored by a rock star, though. You had Big Country on your bikes back in the day, and I can remember that. How did that all come around? How were you sponsored by one of the biggest bands in the UK at that time?
Oh, it's the strangest thing. So I was racing at Knockhill. It was a rotten, rainy day, and getting ready to go out in one of the races, and I needed a hand to change a wheel. And this guy from the crowd sort of stepped up and gave me a bit of hand, and I got my helmet on and off I went into the race, and didn't really know who he was until the following day. So I worked in Iain Duffus' shop in Kirkcaldy, and the fella walked in the door, and I said, "Oh, it's yourself, thanks very much for yesterday," and they're in a way. So I said, "What brings you in?" And he says, "Oh, I quite fancy a road bike." So we're chatting, and got him into the office, and eventually I sold him a bike. That was fine, and away he went. And the one thing he asked for was, would we deliver the bike? So I said, "Yeah, no problem." So the apprentice guy went to deliver the bike, and when he came back, he was all excited because he was all, "Do you know who that was? That's Stuart Adamson." And I didn't know who Stuart Adamson was. I'm not a music fan. So it wasn't until Stuart came in for his first service, I said to him, "You never told me you're a famous rock star." He says, "You never asked." and that was really the start of a great relationship.
To have Big Country, I mean, the Skids, Big Country, we're both rockers, aren't we? Well, we're one of the rockers.
Yeah, but yeah, I was a big fan of them as well, and so I knew who he was. And there's a great picture of you, him, and me standing at Donington in pit lane, but just kind of, he was always low profile, kind of incognito, great guy.
Yeah, I remember that meeting. He flew down, and so we would just have been sort of club racers, if you want, in the days. But in the days, you could go to the British Championships and mix it with the top boys. Not like now. Anyway, I'm sort of wondering about the paddock with Stuart, and Roger Marshall, who was British champion at the time, comes screaming over, and he couldn't believe that Stuart Adamson was there. So the next time, we're in the full on the hospitality suite, getting looked after like lords. So Stuart opened doors for me, that's for sure.
Nothing better than a bit of a blag, that's for sure. Now, there's a picture on screen that we need to draw your attention to, because when yesterday this popped up on screen, there was a very angry John McGuinness, and he just ran forward from the side there. When I showed him the screen was going to come up, Roger, you might want to look at this, he was less than pleased, because he says, "Duffus hit me going in towards your hairpin," and did he leave a gap? Is that what happened here?
Well, no, this is him actually lapping him here in the race, and I found him dithering at the Metropole, and he just got in my way, and that was it. There's the outcome. So you can see he's sort of all astonished there.
He does look like a travel day rider there, doesn't he? Did I see that?
I've got to say, that's a really common thing at the Metropole. So you go flying and trying to pass somebody, and you always run out of brakes. And okay, I bumped into John on that occasion, but plenty of people bumped into me in that place as well.
Did John bump into you?
I can't remember it actually, but I remember DJ and I having a big crash there. The two of us took each other out.
It's never the best thing, never the best thing. Seeing as we're talking about roads just now, Roger, you were a man who finished in the podium twice at Macau. You visited there, I think, was it 8 times. You had a great lot of success at Macau. Iain did Macau as well, but he did the Isle of Man TT. Was the TT anything that was ever on your radar, Roger? Was that never something that you thought about? Because the success at Macau means you're a good road racer.
Yeah, the TT was on my radar, but my parents, going back to when I started, my parents were dead against me racing, and their kind of concession was, okay, well, you can do it, but you've never to do the TT, which kind of was fair enough. And so, yeah, never did the TT. But I've done the Northwest and Macau, and in fact, there you go. That John McGuinness beat me.
He was telling me this last night. He says, Big Roger wasn't happy with me that day. He was not happy.
Listen, you know, you can't win all the time. It was fair enough, and Dave Jeffries, a sad loss as well. But
what a podium to be on, Roger.
Yeah.
John McGuinness, Roger Bennet, David Jeffries.
I did the Macau race 14 times, which at the time was the most anyone had done it, and it's definitely still the most anyone's done it without winning, which isn't necessarily a good record.
It's a record, though. It's a record. And Iain, a couple of TT wins. That's the ones that you want to chalk off. You were a bloody good short circuit racer, but you're also a really, really good road racer as well. TT wins. Brian said it yesterday. That's the one you really want to have on your CV.
Yeah, it's nice to have, and it's what people always sort of remember you for. My TT story is really crazy because it wasn't ever on my radar, the TT. It was Stuart Adamson who said, why don't we go to Isle of Man? And so Brian Morris and I sort of thought, well, we'll have a look into it and see what it entails. So, you know, because Scotland, the way the licensing thing works, we had enough points on our licence to get an international licence. And Howard Selby had been going to the Isle of Man, so I thought, well, we'll just go and see what happens. So Stuart Adamson gave us a few quid to go. I don't know if I gave Brian any of the money or not, probably not. But anyway, off we went together, and I'm not joking, we did not have a clue. We didn't know where to go, what to do, nothing. So anyway, long story short, the first morning in practice, we tap on the shoulder and off we went with our orange bibs on. And away we went into oblivion, not knowing what was down at that end of that road. But anyway, it was great, I loved it. And you know, the highlight of that week was I ended up fastest in practice for that production class, which is an absolute crazy thing. But the morning of the race, the eventual winner of that race was the late Jeff Johnson, who was a top man in his day. And he came up to me, he was in the next hotel, and he came up to me that morning and he said, you know you're not going to win, don't you? And that was it, demoralised me.
Jeff Johnson, a Yorkshire man, if I'm not mistaken, and a great road racer in his own right, but that's just, Roger, it seems bizarre. They wouldn't let you do that nowadays at the TT. There would be an induction process, and they would not tip you over the edge of Bray Hill and say, it's kind of right at the bottom and on you go. They would look after you.
Yeah, even a few years later I did the Northwest, and Nick Jeffries, in fact, as a newcomer, Nick Jeffries was leading a bus tour of newcomers around the circuit, which was really good, you know, and kind of makes sense. But what bike were you on then when you first went to the TT?
The TT, I was on a GPZ 100.
With a 16-inch front wheel?
It was the fastest road bike you could buy in the day. And I had this thing flying down these roads with no idea what was coming up. I mean, it was absolute madness when I look back, but I was young and daft. I was only 21, 22-year-old then, and you know, the world was your oyster.
I'm just happy you're here to tell the tale, actually, but there is a funny story that you two guys both went stateside. You both did the Daytona 200, which is, back in the day, the Daytona 200 was one of the races that you wanted to be in, wanted to win. Maybe more so in the late 70s, early 80s. Manufacturers put a huge, big kind of presence at the Daytona 200. You two guys went there, but unfortunately it maybe didn't end the way you wanted it to end, because you ended up not sharing a hospital bed, but adjacent hospital beds in a hospital ward.
Yeah, I'd done it in '94 and finished 16th and won $4,000. So I was thinking, oh, this is good. Plus, it's a good event, you know. As you say, it was great. There's like say Eddie Lawson, Freddie Spencer, Troy Corser, Carl Fogarty, loads of folk doing it. So we went in '85. Cut a long story short, I crashed with a guy called Doug Chandler and knocked myself out. So I kind of remember coming to in the medical centre at Daytona and kind of looking around, and here's you on my left in a bed in the medical centre as well. What do you remember of it?
Well, I was there for the first time, obviously, and I used to work for Pirelli for a long time, so I can talk about Pirelli now that I don't work for them. So we were on these tyres that...
So was I.
There was hard as these concrete floors, because Daytona's a really weird track on tyres. So the Dunlop America guys, these are these special tyres with hard in the middle, soft on the sides. because the infield's like a normal racetrack, and then you get up onto the bank and the suspension bombs out, they're absolutely flat out, and the tyres get really, really hot. So they made our tyres, well, we didn't have soft on the side, we just had hard everywhere. So they were really terrible, and sort of 3/4 of the way into the race, sure enough, big high side, and that was me, broken ankle.
From all the way from Knockhill to Florida and sharing a medical centre, boys, brilliant. But we're running out of time, but I do want to touch on the famous RC30, which was a bike that Honda brought in, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 80s, early 90s, and it changed from the RC30 into the RC45, and you both raced an RC30. I remember the Pennycook bike like it was yesterday. I remember you, and I think it was a Shirlaw's bike. It was a stunning bike. And it was a bike that everybody wanted to have, but it was a bike that you two guys seemed to gel with and really enjoy, the RC30. What's your best memories, Roger, with that bike?
Yeah, if I could have a bike back out of my whole career, it would be that one. It was fantastic, easy to ride, pretty low maintenance, and as privateers you could buy one and run with the works guys if you were good enough. So that's at the Jock Taylor meeting in '89, and it was a bit of a golden year for me. I won the Scottish Championship, and if Neil Mackenzie's listening, he won that Jock Taylor race. Terry Weiner was second, I was third, and Steve Hislop and Brian Morrison were fourth and fifth. So it's the only time on reasonably kind of even machinery that I can remember beating them.
Yeah, a great photo of that. You up Vincent Hislop going towards the end. Treasured memory, that.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, as Iain will testify, when you lie in bed at night, you know, thinking about things, there's certain high points, and that's definitely one of them.
Iain, your memories of the famous RC30?
Yeah, great bikes. I mean, you could buy one, pay Tony Scott, whatever it was, grand or a couple of grand, and you had a competitive bike. And you could ride them in so many different classes as well, because at that time the Formula 1 race was 750cc, and all the British Championships were 750cc, so I could race umpteen races in a day with one bike, which was fantastic. You did have to spend a few pounds on them to keep on top of them, but they were just a dream to ride. And of course, following on from the RC30 was the RC45, and that was the absolute nightmare. When they first arrived, they were a disaster.
You raced was it V&M colours you raced that?
Yeah, I raced RC45s and V&M and eventually the Honda Britain bikes.
Which should have been the next step, but even better, but it didn't go that way, did it?
The first couple of years were a nightmare, but they did eventually sort them out, and they were quite good in the end, but they were very, very fast. They're just terrible handling things.
Did you ever instruct for us at Knockhill Racing Circuit? Because I know Roger was a long time instructor for us in the Honda Run Haslam. Did you ever do any of that for us at the circuit?
No, I don't think so.
There must have been a reason. There must have been a reason. He'd been a wheelie king like Mark Wright.
Yeah, he didn't pay enough, that's the reason.
Well, and the instructing side of things is something that we always talk about towards the end of one of our chats here, because we're lucky enough to have a Neil Mackenzie Superbike experience. Now, Roger does go back far enough to remember the Honda Run Haslam experiences that we used to have, the likes of Sandy Christie, John Campbell, Greg and Callum Ramsey, who were both here yesterday as instructors. And Knockhill still do the same thing. We do it now with Neil Mackenzie, and Neil picks a handful of instructors to come along. For the first one in April, he's got his son Taylor Mackenzie, and he's also bringing up that John McGuinness who you harpooned into Metropole, who we saw on screen a minute or two ago. So if you're into doing that at Knockhill, guys, it's nice and easy. Pop over and see Ashley and Amanda in the Knockhill shop here, and they can give you a big saving on the 8th of April for the Neil Mackenzie track day. But there's also another thing that happens at Knockhill through the course of the year, and it's possibly my favourite event. It's the Bennett's British Superbike Championship. Now, hands up here, who has got their tickets for Knockhill Superbikes? Don't be shy, young lady, please be there. So 3 people in this whole audience that have got their tickets for the Superbikes. It's not good enough, guys, is it? You can buy them at the shop today. You get a best deal on tickets here at the shop. This is kind of the hard sale that has to come at the end of all these things. But the Superbikes is a fabulous, fabulous event. You guys effectively raced in the Superbikes when it was, I think, the Super Cup, if I'm not mistaken, Roger.
Yeah, and even in BSB in the late 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, you can watch it on TV, but there's nothing like Knockhill on a good day on an event like that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic, and it's always great to go and support the Scottish riders. I see Rory Skinner's back there this year, so he's got to be one of the favourites for the superbike races. He loves it down there. So back in our day, there was lots of Scottish riders, a lot of interest. Not so many these days, I'm afraid. But anyway, we've got Rory, and he's top man.
But Rory Skinner in the superbikes this year. We've also got Lewis Roller, who's going to be out there he's out there in Aprilia in the pathway class. But as Neil McKenzie highlighted last year, Scottish people, apart from the superbike class last year, the Scots won every class, or won the podium in every class. So we have with the talent, just smaller, not like when you guys are racing, when Scotland ruled the world for bike racing in the national scene anymore.
They did, yeah. There must have been about 20 of us at one time, dominating all the classes.
Did you ever divvy up who was going to win so you could evenly spread the prize money out? Did that happen?
Well, I can tell you that never happened, including me, but it definitely did happen.
Not with me.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Remind me.
94 at the Jock Taylor meeting, you were on the Loctite Yamaha.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll just draw a veil over that.
I think I've opened a can of worms here, guys. Listen, thank you very much for coming on to the bike show. It's been fabulous to have you guys on stage and chat about your distinguished careers, because you really were stars, and you still are stars. And remember, guys, there's plenty to see here in the shop. We'll get Iain off stage and Roger. We'll get them down with John and Neil. We'll get some pictures taken. Don't be shy. We're back on around about 11 o'clock, which isn't too long from now. We've got Howard Selby and Iain Duffus. No relation, we should point it out.
Yeah.
Definitely not related. Don't want to admit to anything there? No. So Howard Selby and Iain Duffus will be on. They're two slightly older statesmen than these young guys that we've got here. We're getting them together because they both raced the mighty TZ750s, and Howard is also very, very good on an RG500 and other bikes. But let's hear a nice big round of applause for Roger Bennet and Iain Duffus.
Thank you.